Judging Jodi. Tonight, only Showbiz Tonight is bringing you the judges you watch on TV, and we're asking them to rule on the top 3 things they would deal with if they were presiding over the Jodi Arias trial. From the lies, to the sex, to Jodi's gruesome killing of her boyfriend, Travis Alexander, stabbing him 27 times and shooting him, all, as she claims, in self-defense. With us tonight from Chicago, it's great having these guys here. Judge Lynn Toler, who was a longtime judge in Cleveland and now hosts TV's Divorce Court. In New York tonight, Judge David Young, who was a judge in Miami and, of course, hosted the Judge David Young Show. Thanks for being here. Your honors.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So we're kicking off our Showbiz Countdown tonight with number 3. It's the number 3 thing that we can't wait to hear how both of you would deal with. All of this graphic sex talk at the trial. The Jodi Arias case is about a brutal killing, but it's also about sex.
Give him oral sex, and he wanted to face.
We know everything we could ever care to know about Jodi and Travis's sex life, including the what?
We ended up having sex, anal sex.
The where?
He also wanted to have sex on the freeway while driving, which we did.
And the how.
When I do something like that, like masturbating, requires both hands.
And when it came time to read the juror questions, even the judge joined in the sex talk.
Why did you have sexual relations with Travis?
Necessary evidence or unnecessary titillation? Jodi Arias' trial is the sexiest trial on TV. And not only is this the sexiest trial on TV, but it's really the most graphic. We have watched Jodi's testimony for 17 days now. She's back on the stand tomorrow, and of course, we're going to see it live right here on HLN. Judge Toler, if Jodi Arias was brought into your TV courtroom, would you allow all of this sex testimony?
I think I would have to. A lot of her defense is that she was abused mentally and physically, and that demand and that heavy sexual thing is part of her defense, and you can't not allow a person to bring up their defense. So though it is graphic, though it is lurid, it's something I think the jury needs to hear.
And I think what's striking all of us is how much of it there has been. Judge Young, would you be allowing all the sex testimony in your courtroom?
Well, if it was during sweeps week, absolutely.
Well, of course.
Of course. But, you know, I heard what Judge Toler had to say, and I kind of agree with her, but then again, in my courtroom, it doesn't mean anything. Her talk about the sex was just to titillate herself, probably, and maybe the jurors, but it had no bearing on the fact of whether or not she killed this guy in self-defense. It was absolutely extraneous, and the judge should have smacked her down on it. I know I would have.
Well, we know, whether or not all the sex talk is relevant to the case, it does make for compelling television. So, Judge Young, you make a great point about it during sweeps weeks, but it is keeping us engaged. Judge Toler, do you think that perhaps some of this graphic testimony is actually designed by Jodi's defense team to keep the jurors engaged in this trial?
I think it's designed to make the jurors feel sorry for her. I think they want her to see as weak and being just humiliated over and over and over again by this guy. And I think she's making it as humiliating and lurid as she could possibly can in order to bolster her defense that she was just totally taken over in the mind, and she was almost Stockholm syndromed by this guy and in all of his unusual sexual desires, and also kind of making him a bit of a villain. You're not going to like him as much, and it would be easier to let her go. So I think that's why she's doing all of it.
Judge Young, do you see it the same way, or do you think there's a chance, hey, look, these jurors are going to pay attention, so let's just keep putting it all out there and really get them siding with her as much as possible because she's willing to talk about all this stuff?
Well, it's all the sex talk that's making people from around the country get interested in this case. I mean, Casey Anthony had her own thing, but it wasn't as wide a variety of people who are absolutely glued to the TV set. And I think that the defense counsel knows that. And I think that the defense counsel, knowing that, is hoping that all it takes is one juror to go against a death penalty, and her life is saved. And that's what I think he's banking on.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the sex talk, a big part of the Jodi Arias trial, but there's some other stuff going on, too. And that takes us to number 2 in our Showbiz Countdown of things our TV judges would be dealing with if they were presiding over the trial: Jodi's many, many, many lies. Followers of the Jodi Arias trial are losing track of all the lies she's told about Travis's murder.
Did you kill Travis Alexander?
Absolutely not.
First lie.
I was nowhere near Mesa.
Jodi's second lie.
I witnessed Travis being attacked by 2 other individuals.
Now Jodi's on her third and current story. She killed Travis in self-defense. And yes, she admits to fibbing before.
Anything that related back to My involvement in Travis's death, I covered up.
But now the big question is this: is Jodi still lying? And I have to tell you, and I know you're right there with me, as I have watched her live testimony here on HLN, I am just stunned by how many lies Jodi has been caught telling. Judge Toller, if you were presiding over this trial, how would you deal with all the lies, especially when she got up there and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You know, it's interesting. Not only did she tell a lot of lies, she tells them so well. That's what I found so fascinating about her, is that she could, I mean, she was believable, and just with the passion of each different story that she made up, she was right in it like she was really there. But as a judge, there's nothing that I should do or can do about it. The jury will take into consideration every story, everything she said, and they're the trier of fact, and they can decide whether after 3 or 4 tries, she finally got to the truth or not.
Okay, well, I'm going to flip that on its side for a second, because you both were not just judges on your TV shows. You actually also served as the jury. So, Judge Young, to you, after all of her admitted past lies, and yes, boy, could she sell a lie. I mean, holy mackerel. But would you believe anything that Jodi told you, including, "I'm not guilty of murder"?
You know, if this was in my court, I would have a computer-generated Pinocchio. And every time this woman told a lie, I'd have the nose grow and grow and grow. And it would probably take up the states of Texas, Arizona, Florida, and Georgia, and Alabama, and Louisiana. No, it boils down to credibility, AJ, and this woman has absolutely no credibility. By the tenor and the tone of the questions that the jurors asked her, it's clear in my mind that a majority, if not all of them, think that on a level of 1 to 10, as far as credibility is concerned, she's probably negative infinity.
Yeah, it is hard to believe they're not thinking that negative infinity. I mean, really, I don't know, and it's going to be so interesting to see the insight we get into what was going on in their mind, if any of them speak after this is all over. But we've now heard how you would deal with the lies and the graphic sex testimony. That takes us to number 1 on our Showbiz Countdown of things our TV judges would deal with if they were presiding: Jodi's marathon testimony. She keeps testifying.
He lunged at me right around the time that the gun went off.
And testifying.
Did you enjoy having sex with Travis?
For the most part, yes, I did.
And testifying.
You're the one that did this, right?
Yes.
And when the Jodi Arias trial resumes on Wednesday, which will be carried live right here on HLN, she'll be right back in a familiar spot, back on the stand.
What happened on June 4th, that was the most traumatic experience of my life.
Jodi has testified for a total of 17 days so far. That's longer than it takes to get through most murder trials. So Showbiz Tonight has got to ask, when will the Jodi Arias testifying show finally end? And we may have a better idea when it will all end when we watch Jodi Arias again tomorrow on the stand, live right here on HLN. But Judge Toller, if you were presiding over this trial, would you have allowed this amount of testimony?
I think where I would have cut it off would have been a little bit in the beginning, where she went all the way back to how her parents disciplined her. And I know she's trying to establish, you know, her state of mind and that she has been abused before, but I think she got to take a little too much time talking about who she was and what she was way before she ever met Travis Alexander. So I would have curtailed it a little bit in the beginning, but the longer she testifies, the worse she makes it for herself.
Yeah, I couldn't.
So if I were her attorney, I'd sit her down.
Yeah, it's surprising. You want to believe they have a game plan here, and the judge has let it continue. And we're going to leave it there. Our judges, Your Honors, David and Lynn, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.